Welcome back to Squared Away Garage. What you're going to see in this video is the process of dividing the intake ports on the factory head and also using lumps. So this was quite a little project, and it took a lot of thought how to do it. And it was actually done in collaboration with Larry Page from T6 Performance. I reached out to him at one point on the phone one day, and I told him, hey, I'm thinking about doing this to this head because I've got the engine apart, and this is how I think I want to do it. And he chimed in. He said, it's interesting you brought that up because I'm kind of already working on that myself. So we started trading notes, and this is what we came up with, what you're going to see here. And some of it was my thoughts and how I wanted to do it, and some of it was some bits and pieces that he already had put together that he kind of donated to my project to give me a jump start, along with just some photographic tips for a head that had been cross-sectioned so I could see what was going on inside, and kind of got me going. So I really have to give a big shout out to Larry Page at T6 Performance. And if you guys are interested in doing what I've done here, he is actually going to finish up the head that he started on, and he is going to do some flow tests on it to see exactly how well it does on a bench. So he will have actual hard data that he'll be able to share with everybody. And then in the long run, he intends to offer this as a service so that people that are interested in this that maybe don't have access to a machine shop or whatever can still have their heads done. So big shout out to Larry Page, and thanks for the help. Also, you don't see Larry in the video, but you see my good friend Ron. And Ron owns CNR Manufacturing, and if it wasn't for Ron, this whole project, starting 2 years ago, would have probably never happened. Without his shop and his personal insight and experience, I don't know that I would have pulled all of this off. And it definitely wouldn't have been as nice. So if anybody needs any machine parts, production stuff done, CNR Manufacturing in Shawnee, Kansas. I can't thank Ron enough for all of the help that he's given me. He opened up his shop to me and it allowed me to go in there even when he's not there and use his equipment and stuff. And it's made all the difference in the world. And to be quite honest with you, although I know how to turn on a mill and a lathe and do a few things, without his knowledge and some of the things that he came up with for how to do this, I couldn't have done it on my own. So big shout out to Larry Page and Ron Wassel. I sure appreciate you guys' help, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Take care. One other thing, the video starts a little ways into the process. You got to remember that this was kind of something new, and there was a lot of time spent staring at parts and kind of figuring how to get this project started and how to do it. So in the very beginning, I was not real concerned about documentation and messing with the camera. I was more concerned about figuring out exactly what in the heck I was doing here. So we're going to start this video with a few things already done, namely the dividers are already shaped, and that's not really a process that was very exciting to watch. Whole lot of back and forth, test fitting, making small adjustments until it got everything to fit just the way I wanted it. So you're not missing much, but that's kind of why I'm starting where I start. So anyway, enjoy.
Let's get busy.
Okay, I want to show you guys some things that I'm doing different here, second go around on this engine. One of the first things that I'm doing different is I'm changing the lumps. So this is the old lump, I guess you would call it. We're going to call this version 1, okay? Version 1 is what you commonly find and what even my engine builder, this is what he sells. And these are fine, they do a good job, but there is a newer version of the lump out there. These are Larry Page's updated version of the lump. And what's new about them is their shape is a little bit different. The version 2 lumps, and by the way, Larry Page, this is all in the GM Inline 6, the blue build manual. There's flow numbers to show that the newer lumps flow better than the older lumps. And this is important to me because I'm going to be doing, not only am I reinstalling lumps in this head, but we're also putting dividers in, and we're gonna divide these Siamese ports for better fuel control. See how this is kind of a rounded surface into the valve right here? I want you to look at this other version. This is more of a drop straight down into the valve. So that's one big noticeable feature on here. The other is height. This is a little bit narrower right here than the version 2 is. It gets that air up a little higher in the back and then drops it a little harder into the valve. Should help us with fuel mixture. But the part that's really going to help me when I do the dividers is the ramp on the back. The version 1 has kind of a rounded ramp here. So as it comes up, it gets high quickly and then kind of rounds into the top of it here, right? The version 2 stays low in the back and is more of a wedge shape. It doesn't have near as much radius to it. If you can imagine this for a minute, this is the opening of the Siamese port, right? And as you go into the head, as you go down into here, that opening gets wider than the mouth of the intake port, which is why this is shaped the way that it is. It gets wider in here. So what is the change in the profile between these two doing? Well, it's not getting so high in the beginning in the narrow part of the port. It's staying a little bit lower, allowing a little more volume of air to be able to get through the opening. And then as the opening gets wider in the actual head, it starts to come up and force the air up so that it can then drop down into the valve. So this flows more air than this one. The second big change I touched on a second ago is dividers. We're going to divide these ports with a 1/8 inch thick divider, and I've already shaped them and they'll fit down in here like so. And once you give them a tap, they fit very nicely in there. It's taken me quite a little bit of time to do that. So the next big thing that we've got to do is we've got to divide this lump into 2 pieces. And the 2 pieces of the lumps are then going to go in here and sandwich the divider. One of the things that we had to do a little bit different is, you notice on the original lump that was in this head, there's one threaded hole, and that's all that was used to mount this. Since we're going to divide this port into two, we had to go add extra holes, mounting holes, and thread the thread the port, or excuse me, thread the lump on both sides, because this is going to end up getting slit right here. Once that's slit in half, the two pieces will go on, sandwich the divider in here, and then we'll secure the lumps from here. This divider is going to stop on the inside of the head bolt that comes through here. So my divider is actually going to end up being two pieces. And how are we going to do that? I'm going to do that with my spacer blocks for my intake. So I'm going to build another intake for this engine. And how we're going to use these is with this right here. So we have created this tooling, and I've got a 1/8 inch thick broach, and we're gonna push this down through here, and we're gonna cut a keyway on the inside of this intake spacer. We're gonna cut a keyway here and here, right in the center of this opening, which matches the openings on the head. So I will then be able to slide in another 1/8 inch piece of material in here and match it up to the piece, these that are going to be in the head.
Inside yourself. Can you see me?
Next question, hold on, before we get going, next question. That tool is going to be zinging around in there, and those two pieces are going to come apart. The bottom one's going to fall down, the top one's going to fall on the tool.
Yeah. And it goes, it wants it to go.
Well,
if it catches it. Yeah. So, you know, maybe we don't go quite all the way through, and we leave it about
If we're gonna leave something,
1/16 of an inch.
if we're gonna leave it, I would rather go all the way through on this end, because that's the part we're gonna try to clamp and be snug on the plate. Now remember, in the front, I'm gonna file this out anyway, so that my mating piece kind of slides into there.
Well,
so that'll be more.
You don't go all the way through. You snap it too.
Well, yeah.
All the way through, within about 30 or 40 thousandths, and all you gotta do is sand a little bit off of those sides.
If you're that precision, then sure.
Well, I mean, the mill should be able to do that. I mean,
go ahead.
I don't know.
Can you shed a light on the treasure that you are? Can you be at ease for a moment? Can you feel that peace and zone in everything that you are? You already got all you need.
them. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty slick right there.
You don't need to try so hard. Realize you're right where you need to be. You had it from the very start. Hidden in your heart is a remedy. Don't be sad, don't get stuck in the past. Don't try to force it, nothing will last. Nothing's real if it's not in this moment. Nothing's fear if it's not now.
I want to illustrate real quick how all of this assembly fits together. Show you in here. So you can see that there's 1/2 of my lump is already installed. Here's the other half of the lump. The only difference between what you normally see and what I've done here, obviously aside from cutting the lump in half, is I now have two bolts holding the lumps in. Okay, so both pieces of the lumps go in, and this lump has been divided in a manner that the amount of material that was taken out is the right fit for the thickness of the 1/8 dividers that I'm putting in to them. So this is still a little bit loose. Here's my divider that goes into the back of the head. That'll go in there and that'll get tapped in place with a little punch, tink, and it'll get tight all by itself. And then from there, we're going to take the second half of this lump that I had just installed, and as I tighten it down, that divider is going to get snug in there. Okay, so now the head is ready. So let's jump forward. Like, the head is now being mounted onto the engine. Head bolt goes in, clears that back divider, and it also locks that divider in if it were to ever come loose. Okay, so now we're ready to put the intake and the exhaust on. So here goes our gasket. Then of course my intake blocks that I make, these will already be welded onto the intake manifold. In the back of the intake blocks, or the intake spacers, will be this second piece of the divider. And this, you can see this notch here, will go down into this notch in the back of the lump. Voila.
Look inside yourself. Can you see beyond your mind? Can you shed a light? treasure that you are. Can you be at ease for a moment? Can you feel that peace and your soul in everything that you are? You already got all you need.
So here you have it. Everything's pre-fit. Just a pro tip, guys. Anytime you're gonna be welding expensive parts together, make sure and pre-fit everything beforehand. These are my kits. This is my stuff that I sell you guys, and I'm still checking it before I go welding the intake manifold onto these blocks, just to make sure that nothing is off and that I catch any problems beforehand. So I suggest you do that too.
Look inside yourself. Can you see beyond your mind? Can you shed a light on the treasure that you are? Can you be at ease for a moment? Can you feel that peace and your soul in everything that you are? You already got all you need. You don't need to try so hard. Realize you're right where you need to be. You had it from the very start. Hidden in your heart, there's a remedy. Don't be sad, don't get stuck in the past. Don't try to force it, nothing will last. Nothing's real if it's not in this moment. Nothing's here if it's not now.
For those of you who are wondering about how this whole process goes, check right up here. And there's a link to the video for an installation I did a while back. It's with an Aussie speed intake. This is a Clifford. Procedure's still the same. In my how-to video for the intake manifold, I showed you guys what the Aussie speed looked like once the intake spacers were welded on. I thought I'd show you what the Clifford looks like. Clifford matches much better. Interesting thing is this last port, so this would be for 5 and 6, seems to be off a little bit from the other two. They seem to match up quite a bit better. These two do. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But the 5-6 is definitely a little further off. Just observations. Alright, doing a little test fitting here just to make sure before I send everything out to get it coated that it is good to go once it's on the engine. Just like to double check. These are all loose. My dividers for the intake are all loose right now. So the intake will not go on all the way because these are not pressed back into where they're supposed to go. So keep that in mind because I'm not going to slide this all the way in. But I want you to see how this works. So headers are on, torqued, bolts are all in. We've got the dividers and lumps in the head. Dividers will be pressed back further into the intake manifold and will be a permanent part of that. And then we'll take this, we'll kind of line up dividers in the slots while also getting onto our studs. Slide everything on. Then I'll be able to put my nuts on and hold my intake in place. There we have it. Divided head with lumps and fuel injection.